Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy, my channel's Finding Value. And if you're looking for undervalued investment opportunities or want to talk about markets and market conditions, click subscribe. Love to have you on the channel and in this community. So today I want to talk, I've been reading through a couple articles. It's mainly in oil. And for some reason, just in the back of my head, I keep thinking about this. There is not much investment going into oil. I think we are going to get into a very large supply crunch. So I've been kind of looking for some data, looking at what other people think about a huge supply crunch for oil. And it looks like spending is not going into oil. A lot of governments want large oil companies to get out of the oil business. But in order for them to get out of the oil business, they stop spending in oil. If you stop spending in oil, production goes down. So I've got some data here. I've got an article that I want to share with everybody on the channel. And I know I'm a huge oil bull. I mean, I'm probably more of an oil bull than anyone that I know of. I think that oil could go up multiples of where it is today. So, and people will call me crazy. I honestly think it has a shot of hitting many hundreds of dollars a barrel, maybe even $500, $600, $700 a barrel, because we're not really taking the demand down, it's going up. And at the same time, we are basically strangling all of the supply. Like, this is a really bad scenario. And when you think about mining, this is going to impact everything. And I don't know how high it's going to go. I don't want to claim or project anything. I just think it's going to go very high. I don't know how high. I think 200's in the bag. It's just how high above that is it going to go? Because when you've got demand all coming back, and this is in the short term, I'm not talking long term, I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years. If you strangle the supply side and the demand goes unabated and it all comes back, where are we going to get this stuff? I mean, we're going to see a very large deficit. Then it's just how much do consumers, how much are they going to pay? What are they willing to pay, and where is it going to slow that demand down? Now, here's the article. I'll go over the article here real quick and just touch some of the high points. It says, it's too late to avoid a major oil supply crisis. And he just go out right off the top. There are a number of observable trends in oil supplies and by extension, prices presently. And I'm going to go over some of the charts that he has. Here's one of them. This is the DUC investment versus rig and frac spread count. This is going in time, and you can see that the rigs just continue to decline, and they're not really bouncing back. I mean, we had massive amounts of rigs in comparison to where we are today. About 50% from 2019 are in operation today. And even though the price has gone up quite a bit, they're not bouncing back. And the pressures on a lot of these companies from governments going to a renewable green alternative are quite high. Now, this transition is going to look, I think, ugly as heck between a fossil fuel world and a renewable world. And I think prices, I think they're going to go quite substantially higher. Now, here's another one. This is the U.S. oil rigs and WTI price. And you can see the rigs are just way down, even though the price is higher than back here. I mean, the rig count was at 900 almost in January of 2019, and now we're all the way to 350. I mean, we're literally almost a third. It's not coming back. I wonder what that, in a year or two, this oil, the depletion from existing wells and not growing oil production, this is going to look ugly. We could have demand going up at a very fast rate. At the same time, production's declining quite rapidly. That's not a good mix. That is not a good mix for prices. If you're a consumer. Now, here's the annual global spending on oil extraction. Look at this thing decline. Down here, it's about half of what it is up here earlier. And this is 2012 to 2015 spending. Then it just declines and then declines. Who knows where this is going to end up? Now, I want to touch on another thing. I was looking at another article. Oil is going to drive a lot of, this is going to be inflation into the system in terms of prices. And that's what That's what people consider, inflation is prices. I'm more of a monetary guy, but let's just say prices go up a lot. It's going to put pressure everywhere in the system. And if we're switching to this renewable world, I want to show you this article here. It says, the worst setback for the solar boom in a decade. So we go down here. It says, while the IEA and governments around the world are fighting for the development of cleaner energy projects, there is still a significant learning curve in the world of renewables. Unforeseen expenses such as tripling steel prices, higher freight rates, the ocean freight prices increasing by 100% in May, and steep polysilicon and fuel costs have made giant solar installations far more costly. Many companies are in a wait-and-see mode as they hope solar components and transport costs will gradually stabilize at a lower price than the current spike. In the first quarter of 2021, the contract prices for solar projects in the U.S. were up by around 15% on 2020, and these expenses have been rising further in quarter two. So we've got expenses and their inputs all drastically going higher, just like I was talking about on the channel earlier about renewables and electric vehicles. Their cost and input costs they're gonna ramp way higher. These will not be cheaper vehicles than what you could have bought them a couple years ago. Their prices are going to go way higher. Experts are predicting that many as 15% of utility scale solar projects could be delayed this year in response to the increase in costs, reducing capacity additions by over 2.3 gigawatts in 2021. It says the disruption to solar hasn't been this bad in more than a decade. Just wait until inflation comes. Wait until all their input costs go up 40, 50, 100%. They're not going to build any of this stuff. It'll be too costly. So one thing I wanted to touch on, is solar is highly dependent on input costs, as you can see in this article. They're delaying projects, and this is just the beginning of a commodity boom. Imagine if these prices continue to go higher. I think that solar is the one that's going to be priced out unless they dump a bunch of money into it from an entity that doesn't care about price. We'll call it governments. Now, if we're not putting money into fossil fuels, and we see people not putting projects into existence from renewables, where is this energy going to come from? I mean, at that point, you're basically stuck to a few investments. I mean, physical metals in your hand doesn't have any sort of problems when energy prices go up. But if energy prices go up dramatically, the scarcity of those metals should increase because prices are going to go up a ton because of the input costs. And that's where royalty companies come in. Royalty companies don't have that input cost problem. And I've been heavily acquiring royalty companies for this very reason, as they just make money off of production volumes and price. If price goes way up and the volumes stay roughly the same, but the mining costs also go up and the margins get squeezed to the miners, the royalty companies don't have that problem. So I am continually dumping more into royalty. I still like the energy plays in terms of uranium and oil. I just think oil. And then I've got a couple of charts here just to show you guys what the potential could be. I zoomed in here. This is from 2005 to 2020. This is oil price itself. So I zoomed in, and we're breaking this trend line. If you use this as your starting point, you can also move this to say like this, and move this down a little bit like that. You could say that's also a trend line. That's what's a valid break. But I think over the next couple of years, oil's just going to march higher. It's going to continually march higher. If you look at the inventories of oil, we are continually at the fastest pace ever ripping through inventory. There's a possibility that we hit $100 a barrel this year if we continue to draw inventory at the rate that we are. We've had the largest draw, I think, last time of oils. It's something like 10 or 11 million barrels or something like that. A very large draw. And if we continue to do this, and they choke all the investment to oil, I don't know how they're going to make this up. Sure, OPEC can turn on the spigots a little bit more, but they're going to run out of capacity. They don't have an infinite, amount of capacity there. And when they push it at certain levels, their fields, they get a huge water cut, which means they're pushing it too much. So they have limits. And I don't think those limits are higher than what most people think. They think, I don't think they have as much capacity as what most think. And this is the long-term chart of oil. I drew it in this manner where you kind of draw it from the edges and then you draw it from this one. If this is like a megaphone type pattern, look at on a logarithmic scale, look at the top price if we were to hit that upper scale up there. That's at 1,000. I'm not saying it's going to go there. What I am suggesting is that it's possible, if you draw it in this manner, that oil could be multiple hundreds of dollars. And it makes sense with the lack of investment that's going to it and with demand coming back as fast as it is. So I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic here. And keep in mind, oil price, it's one of the largest inflation sensitive areas. And if they're pumping the money into the system, well, this guy's going to benefit when the dollar declines. And if they're setting up a supply-demand total mess up here of no investment into oil, I don't know where the heck this thing's going to go. I think it's just going to continue to march higher. And obviously, you're going to get your pullbacks. I'm not saying it's going to be a straight up, but I think it's going to be on a pretty good uptrend for a very long time. So check out my oil technical analysis ones if you guys are looking for investment opportunities in oil. I go over a whole wide array of oil companies, and you guys can do further research into that during those videos. If you like this content, give me a thumbs up. Thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.